All right. So, sorry, I am joined by Elias, Ralph, Jazz Gardner, and the new head coach of Pacific, Dave Smart. Thanks for hopping on and getting a chance to talk just what the season is going to look like for Pacific. Obviously, this is a kind of a rebirth year for the program, because this was a program that was kind of rock bottom a year ago. Got a lot of new faces, more or less every new face is new in here. Kind of talk about like just what these first few months have been like, kind of bringing in a new energy and kind of what you want this program to kind of be moving forward.
Well, I mean, again, moving into the position, I mean, we knew we knew that all the guys except one had put their name in the portal. So, it seems like a bad thing, but really they went 0-16. So yeah. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right, it is what it is.
It is what it is. So, we got an opportunity to fill the roster with the type of people we want. Mm-hmm. In terms of where you go basketball wise, sometimes when you're bringing in that many guys in that short a time, it's hard to get a ton of depth, and I'm pretty happy with what we have in terms of our depth. But we got the type of people we wanted, and we got, we sort of went a route where we got some guys who I think can physically compete at this level, at the WCC level, and if we stay healthy, we can give some teams some problems, and I think surprise some people. I mean, again, in this situation, health is a big thing. Sure. Because we had to find 12 new players, so we had to make a decision on how we were going to do that. Mm-hmm. We went with sort of 6, 7, 8 guys who could make an impact physically and play at this level, and then some guys who we thought had the potential to move into that role, but it was going to take some time, and I'm really happy with that. Mm-hmm. You just worry whether if you get too many injuries, that too many of the guys who you see having a ton of potential and a ton of opportunity to be great down the road to a year, 2 years down the road, don't have to get thrown into the fire right away. And if they don't, I think we can be good. I think the portal helped us. So we got to recruit. It was a lot of work.
Yeah. It's one of the advantages of the portal is that you can build pretty quickly and find some experienced guys. And like obviously, like you've been able to do that. You bring in a few guys who have a ton of experience. Elias, like your experience coming from Canadian basketball, kind of talk about like what your experience has been like these first few months of like kind of what adjustments have you had to make to the WCC level, or just kind of what these first few practices have been like.
Yeah, coming from Canada, it was like the main difference I think I had to make was just like physically. I was pretty small last couple of years of Victoria, so my focus was just becoming bigger, faster, stronger, because that's like the biggest difference in the WCC is just the speed of the game, the physicality. So that's what I've kind of been working on, and I think I've adjusted well in the first couple of months.
And Jazz, like you're kind of sort of familiar because you came from Nevada, where like that was a big tough league in the Mountain West. Kind of like what your adjustment has kind of been like coming back to California and being in the WCC, and just kind of what your transition has been like going from Nevada to Pacific.
Well, while I was at Nevada, I wasn't playing that much, so I was just trying to take any information I can and trying to use it towards my next spot. So my transition has been like trying to get stronger, faster, essentials conditioning wise, just trying to make my game better, more polished, just trying to learn anything I can for this year.
Yeah. One of the challenges of having so many new guys is then trying to find that cohesion and trying to find that rhythm with everybody. Like really it's a question for all of you, just like how has that kind of gone in practices of like, where are you on a connectivity front? Like how is it like working with your teammates? Obviously like almost everybody new on the roster. So how has that gone?
I mean, I think it's gone as well as you can expect it to go, considering the circumstances. I mean, our practices have been highly competitive. We go hard. The guys have gone hard. They've competed we've established roles to a certain level in many aspects individually, but I mean, how it's gone, we haven't played anybody other than ourselves. You know, Saturday we get our first scrimmage. We'll have a better idea of how we handle adversity, how we handle seeing things that we don't know is coming. I mean, it's all fine and good to say, well, practices are fine, look good. I've now coached, I think, over 5,000 practices at all levels that I've coached at. So yes, I'm old, and I don't remember having a good practice. So ever. So whenever anybody has said to me, "Oh, that was a great practice," I go, "How? Like, how does anyone have a good practice? Like, it makes no sense to me, because if someone has a good practice, they're kicking the butt of somebody else who's having a bad practice. And, you know, like if one team's doing well and the other team's not doing well, they might be not doing well because they're not good, which is a problem, or they might not be doing well because they're pouting, which is maybe worse. So, you know, I guess, do I like the fact that we haven't had many practices where I felt like the whole group weren't competing? The whole group weren't playing as hard as they needed to? Sure. Have I had a practice where I thought everybody was competing at the level that they needed to compete at? Everybody was playing as hard as they had to play? Nope, not one. So until we play someone else, it's really hard to guess. I mean, this is a big coaches thing, and it's true. I mean, you do this as long as I've done it. You recognize how bad things are, and how many holes you have, and how many things that don't look good for you, and then you recognize, never underestimate how effed up the other team is. You know, so once we get playing some other games, then we get a better idea of just how messed up we are compared to how messed up they are. Really, you just have to be less messed up than they are. So that's the goal. We're all messed up. Every single team has holes. Every single team has their kryptonite. Every single team are fighting something. We just got to be fighting less than the other team, and then you get a victory.
I mean, the Pacific program has been one that we've known, like a couple of years ago, this is actually one of the tougher teams in the league, and actually, so it's not like too far removed from having success at that program. What's kind of been like maybe the administration, like some of the alums, like what has been kind of like the early kind of messaging been from them, or just kind of like what's their optimism about what you're going to be able to bring and what the team's going to look like?
Well, I mean, administratively, I've had a lot of presidents in my time coaching over the years, and I can't imagine that any school of the 380 schools have a better president than we have when it comes to caring about the school, caring about the men's basketball program. I mean, Chris is unbelievable. Our AD, he came from Dayton. He understands what winning at a basketball school looks like, and he cares about it, and it's important to him. You know, I think they did have some success a few years ago, but it was a different landscape. Now there's a portal. Now there's NIL. So, you know, like our alumni, our boosters have been unbelievable. Our community has been unbelievable. But I think they're starting to understand that you don't have success anymore unless the community and the alumni and the boosters are behind it. You know, if you don't have NIL, you can bring Phil Jackson in here, and you're not making the NCAA tournament. You need as an at-large team. If you want to make it as an at-large team, you need great players, you need great coaches, and you need great support. In our case, from our alumni, from our boosters, from our community. I mean, we talk about role models and people to follow or groups to follow. Look at Gonzaga. I mean, their NIL is off the charts.
Yeah.
And that's, sure, it's alumni, sure, it's boosters, but it's their community. The entire community has got behind that school. Stockton are like, there's a appetite for it. They understand it. They understand the difference in it now compared to what it was 5 years ago.
Sure.
If the community want NCAA basketball or a NCAA tournament team consistent year in, year out, I think we can bring in the players that we need, because the area is unbelievable. The school is unbelievable. I think we'll, you know, maybe we're not the smartest people on the coaching staff in the world, but we will work as hard or harder than anyone in the country. We've got administration who are behind it. It's really up to how bad everyone wants to buy in. And if we can't follow Gonzaga's lead, then we probably aren't going to get to where they've gotten to. But I see no reason Stockton and Pacific can't be Gonzaga and Spokane.
How was your experience in Lubbock? Kind of like helped inform you about how that can be built, or how much of an example were able to take from Texas Tech?
Well, I mean, again, at a bigger level, because it's Big 12.
Sure.
But Lubbock is that. It's a university town. It's a community that feel like everybody looks down on them, and they put everything in to show that their community, their city, their university is as good as anyone in the country. And their facilities are like that. Their record over the past 6 years indicates that the entire community is behind them. It's not just alumni, it's not just boosters, it's the entire community in Lubbock, and that's what we're trying to build in Stockton. And I think with the president we have, with the athletic director we have, and I think the community also know that they didn't bring in someone like me, who, even though I look super young, I'm old. I'm not looking for the next job. I'm not just going to leapfrog. I don't have enough years to leapfrog 6 jobs to get to the Big 12 in 20 years. I'm not going to be doing this in 20 years. I came to Pacific to be at Pacific, and I hope I think the community want to get behind the program, and everything I've seen they do, and I think we can get where we need to get to. It's going to take time. The first year, it's not. I mean, I know I hate losing. We lost 12 games in my last 12 years of curl, so I hate losing. But it's not about winning and losing our first year. It's culture and building the right work ethic, about right idea about individually getting better as players. That has to be built first. We lost 50% of our games my first year at Carleton, and then never lost more than 3. If we can pull something like that off here at Pacific, then great. If we can win 70% of our games and upset some people and get to a level that people don't expect, that would be great too. But it is going to take a little bit of time to be sustainable.
What were some of the things, and what convinced you to kind of come to this program? Because this was obviously almost like a clean slate, a great opportunity, new head coach. What was it that kind of sold you that this was a right place for you and your basketball future?
Probably just coach, because you kind of just hear how players that he's coached overachieve, and how he can coach at the individual level and push players past their potential. And that's exactly what I needed to push me competitively and individually. So I thought it was a perfect scenario.
Mostly coach, because I just needed somewhere to play. First off, I didn't really play much in Nevada, so I felt like coach knew what I needed to be better, and wanted to make those changes to see that potential come out, because everybody says I have a lot of potential. It's always Mr. Potential over here, I guess.
Yeah.
But we're trying to make it into results now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Agree with these guys. Lots of potential. I honestly, I've in some of the short film I've seen of you from Nevada, I see the potential too. So I'm kind of on board with that as well. Even you talked about how you guys could surprise some people. Just seeing the additions you made, I was kind of on board with that as well. It's I think you guys can sneak up on some teams. I think there is potential for that in year one. But even thinking now, looking at this league, looking at where the position is, obviously Washington State and Oregon State are brand new to the league. They come in this year. Next year, Grand Canyon and Seattle join. As you kind of start to plan out what the future looks like, obviously the portal kind of throws a bunch of that into the wind to an extent. But what are kind of we talked a little bit about the next steps, what the long-term goal is. So as you start to see these other teams come in, how do you see this league as on a competitive front, as we see the additions and yes, subtraction in a few years, but how this league is growing?
Well, I mean, I think the leagues there's so many great coaches, And again, I think you go to any media day with any conference, and everybody's going to say, "Well, our conference has the best coaches in the world." And I'm going, I don't know how you like coaches. I don't know how you find a conference who has better coaches than this conference, and take me out of the mix. And like I do think I can add to it. I mean, I've done this a long time. I've had a lot of success, but I don't even think, if you were going to ask me two guys who I have probably as much respect for in the coaching ranks as any two who have ever coached, Mark and Randy. I mean, like what they've done at their programs, and they've stayed there. Like every other conference has, they have good coaches, and they some of those coaches are good recruiters. Some of those good coaches that end up in the Power Five.
Yeah,
they're good promoters. They're good coaches, or sorry, great recruiters, great promoters, and kind of average coaches. And they can get a ton of talent, and they do a decent job. Then there's some really good coaches too. I'm not trying to take, but I would challenge anybody to tell me who's a better coach than Mark Few and Randy. Like, in the country. Like, I was in the Big 12 last year, and great coaches. I would never downplay the coaches in that league, and would never downplay the coaches in any of the Power Four leagues. But can you tell me somebody who you would argue, if we had a debate, that you would win the argument about who's a better basketball coach? Maybe a better recruiter. That would be debatable too with Gonzaga. But maybe a better promoter, maybe better in front of the cameras, and I'm not trying to take away what they're like. I'm just saying, what conference has two guys who stack up to those two guys? And we're not even talking about Herb. We're not even talking about the young guys who are doing an unbelievable job. But we're not, like, those two guys alone. And then you got add a guy like Herb. Like, it's crazy how good you have to be in this conference as a coach to survive. And again, I'll ask you, you follow the game.
Yeah.
Give me two. Give me the top two in any conference that are better basketball coaches than those two guys.
I would have to actually think long and hard before I came up with two from any one conference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as we kind of like take a step back, I know you guys have to, I think we're running up against it a little bit on time. So when talking about like the personality of this team, what should we kind of expect from this group kind of going in? Obviously, like maybe by the time we get to conference, like what do you expect that this team is going to, like personality-wise, going to look like?
I mean, I hope we're hard to play against. I hope we're very physical. I hope we defend at a level that's as good as anybody in the conference. I mean, I hope we can get to those things, because I think you can control those quicker than you can control some of the other things. Obviously, we want to play fast, because if you're going to play a 5-on-5 game against St. Mary's, you have no chance. Like you have to score in transition.
Mm-hmm.
You have to score when you get stops, or you're not going to score. And it's not a whole lot different with Gonzaga. But, against the good teams in our league, you have to find ways to score where you have an advantage somewhere, and it's going to have to happen quick, not necessarily after makes, but, after misses and steals, you're going to have to play fast. But, part of that is controllable. Part of that is skill level. That's controllable, but it takes time. Improving skill level, offensive skill level takes time. The defensive side of it takes time, but not as much. So I'm hoping that we are a nightmare on the boards, and we are a nightmare to play against on the defensive side of the ball.
Great. Thanks a lot, Coach. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.